The first round of the 2025 NFL Draft is in the books. We got to give our biggest reactions and set the scene for night 2 today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins.
Howdy.
And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply.
Happy day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft. It's tonight. You and I spent 4 hours last night talking with each other, hanging out with, in real time, more than 2,000 of our closest friends, which was a lot of fun for the night 1 stream.
Yeah, it was awesome. A fun night, man. The buzz phrase coming into the draft was unpredictability. And I think we got a lot of that. You know, we get the big trade up with Jacksonville to 2. And then the dominoes from there were just really fascinating to see how the board fell. And, you know, we didn't get like a major run on quarterbacks or anything like that, but a very memorable night in terms of seeing this come together and how the board unfolded, man. A lot of trench players went in round 1.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. For those who are watching on the YouTube, I'm going to pull up my draft board just to kind of reflect. It has the names that went grayed out. But what you mentioned with the trench players gone, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly, Kelvin Banks. That was every tackle eligible player that I had with a first or late 1, early 2. Great. They're all gone. Then you have Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Gray Zabel. Those were the top 3 interior offensive linemen that I had ranked in this class. They're gone. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, Tylik Williams. All those guys are gone. Those were the top 5 defensive tackles that I had. Really, unless you were Mike Green, who has some egregious off the field and background vetting that teams need to do, you could look at inside and outside guys in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and all those players are gone. And I know that if you are watching on YouTube and you can't totally read the names, I get it, but it's more the visual element of this, and this is also an audio and video program simultaneously. So it's more so to just kind of drive home this point that we're talking about with the big boys. It went, and they went expeditiously, and now you're kind of looking at a bit of a drop. And there's going to be some teams that if you need an offensive tackle, you don't have a lot of options left anymore. So, you know, whether that's New England wanting to double down, or Chicago with after they went with Colston Loveland, and maybe they want to get a left tackle. Who else is in that early? Cleveland potentially at 33 and 36. Does the urgency continue? I think that's the interesting thing now for the big boys.
Well, we had our conversation earlier in the week where we delivered our consensus top 100. And if I'm not mistaken, half of it was O-line, D-line.
Yeah, 50. Legit 50 names.
And I think people will have a urgency to talk about copycat league. And, of course, the Eagles are good in the trenches. I think it's maybe some of that. I think the NFL's always known that it's important to be good in the trenches, but I think it speaks more to what this draft class had to offer. And at the same time, some of these late first-round picks at offensive tackle where the Commanders are getting Josh Connerly and the Chiefs get Josh Simmons, like, you had quality throughout this first round. Donovan Jackson to Minnesota. So there's a lot to be excited about with the early picks and Membu and Campbell and Kelvin Banks. But you saw teams late first round get answers in really exciting players that I had graded pretty high. So I think there was a lot of quality at tackle throughout. But we talked about this where there is a drop off. Like, it does fall off at tackle. And so I'm unsurprised that, like, all the names that you thought would go did go, and teams got real serious about being able to protect that quarterback, because the other side of the equation is teams are gearing up on the defensive linemen, which certainly heard their names called early and often on Thursday night.
Which kind of sets the stage for some of the guys left on that side of the ball still. We talked about the scarcity. Like, if you needed a day one starter for offensive linemen, I know you're not super high on Ursary, but would you agree that, like, he's a potential candidate to be a drafted guy?
Sure.
At guard, you've got Savi Naya and Tate Ratledge.
Love those guys. Yeah, love those guys.
After that, Marcus Mbo is, as a convert inside, could probably be a starter. Charles Grant.
Yeah.
William. So now you're talking to William and Mary, Ozzie Trapilo, Anthony Belton, Chase Luntz, a scheme specific.
The landscape's very different. It's
right?
Very,
you probably got 4 or 5 names tops.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a plug and play starter offensive lineman that you feel good, like, hey, we're going to draft him and we're going to expect he's going to take a starting job for us. Now, there's other guys further down. Like, you could tell me in the right situation, Cameron Williams or Wyatt Milam or Caleb Rogers or Miles Frazier, like, those guys could start, but you're not drafting that guy with the expectation, hey, lock, stock, and barrel, this guy's to be a starter for us from day one.
Yeah.
So you contrast that with, yes, the defensive tackle run did happen where you had Graham, Grant, Harmon, Nolan, Williams, but you still have Alfred Collins. You have Darius Alexander. You got CJ Sanders and Omar Norman Lott as penetration disruption style players. You got Shamar Turner. You got Jamari Caldwell and Jordan Phillips as kind of big bodied, athletic A-gap guys. Kind of feel like there's still a lot to work with there in contrast to the offensive line.
Yeah, even Josh Farmer, another name there. Ty Robinson at D tackle, other guys that I like.
Vernon Broughton.
Tools. Yeah. So there's a drop off, but I still think there's some D tackle answers out there. And I think the defensive tackle landscape was really affected by the Jaguars moving up to number 2 for Travis Hunter, because that put Mason Graham back on the table for the number 5 pick. It wasn't to Jacksonville, but it goes to Cleveland. And then you're kind of piecing this together before the draft. And, well, okay, if the Jaguars stick and pick an offensive skill player, which kind of felt like where the trend was going, what does that mean for Mason Graham? And all of a sudden he gets to New Orleans or San Francisco, and then what happens from there? Well, he goes 5, and now we have Kenneth Grant 13 to Miami. Harmon goes 21 to the Steelers, and Tyleik Williams is a first-round pick, with Walter Nolan, of course, gone. So I thought the defensive tackle landscape was a big consequence, fallout, domino of the trade with Cleveland and Jacksonville, where Travis Hunter went number 2.
Well, I think Kenneth Grant's a pretty significant domino here too, because the projections, for whatever reason, had him as a late first-round guy, but only for the last 6 weeks.
Kyle, I can't deal with it.
Because you go back and you watch the mock draft. Who is it grinding the mocks? I bet I could pull that up, and I bet you'd see this like weird roller coaster dip and subsequent bump. And like he went where he was getting mocked through February.
Yeah.
Is like he was a consensus player in that stratosphere.
What happened? Nothing.
Nothing. Well, he put up a few reps on the bench press for everybody's liking.
Oh,
but realistically, like when the mocks had Grant was really popular pairing with the Chargers at 22, right? When that domino effect happens and he goes effectively 10 spots earlier than that. And then, the Lions with Tyleik Williams, kind of the surprise at defensive tackle. But when we pieced it together last night and we talk about the Ali McNeil injury and kind of the parallels with their style of play, that's how you get this formula. But the good news is if you need defensive tackle help, you should still find any kind of body type that you need and feel like you're getting okay value here tonight.
I agree on that. Some players wound up not getting picked. Some players fell. We're going to get into some of those storylines here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. You can post your job with LinkedIn's new feature that can actually help you write job descriptions and then quickly get that job posting in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. You add that hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to get those qualified candidates. No wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at Kenneth Grant, the mock draft, grindingthemocks.com with Kenneth Grant. And we're sitting about 16, and then March happens, and we dip down to about 25, and then boop, there's a short spike at the end where he goes back up to 22, and then sure enough gets drafted 13.
He's always a top 15 player, man. Always. All right, so there were some players that were always top 15 players that didn't go top 15, and we're talking about one Will Johnson.
Good call.
What a fallout, right? I mean, not necessarily that he did anything wrong, but the reality of his story as a prospect, where in 2023, I mean, it's about as good a corner tape as you're ever going to find. And knee scope, turf toe, long-term concerns about the knee, and a player that you and I both had graded very highly is still waiting to hear his name called. And it certainly appears that teams failed him when it comes to the medicals.
Yeah. A lot of concern about the knee, the longevity of the knee, whether it's degenerative or not. And then, of course, like his whole pre-draft process where he had a knee issue in 23 that had surgery, and he said it was a minor scope. And then he also had a toe, and then he had a toe again, and he had a shoulder, and then he had a hamstring, and now he has a knee, and he doesn't run. And there's some concern, like if he was going to run a 40, what would you have guessed the 40 time would have been?
Just coming out of the 23 tape?
Yeah. Like, do you say he's probably a low 4.5 guy?
Yeah, I would say a strike zone of 4.45 to 4.55, somewhere in there would be normal, like what I would expect.
Okay, and I'll go even more narrow. I'd say 4.49 to 4.53 would kind of be like where I expect him to run. Obviously, he didn't run, but that lingering question of the speed and now this on top of it, yeah, you're gonna fall. And it has been this very unceremonious drop for Will Johnson, but at least you knew coming in, hey, there is a reported issue here. So there's some background as to why it's happened. I mean, you and I have been a part of some mock drafts or some draft shows where guys are falling into day 3 and like there was no reported medical issue beforehand, and then they get drafted and then it comes out. And I don't think Will's going to fall to day 3. I'm sure he'll go at some point, probably in the top 50 picks. But if he does it, I think that's super alarming for what the outlook is for his long-term viability.
We only get 2.5 first-round corners, if I'm not mistaken. Hunter, Barron, Hairston. That's it. All guys that don't have speed concerns, right? Those guys can all scoot.
Yeah.
The other big name when it comes to fallers feels like Mike Green, where the explanation here is quite apparent. There's some notable off-the-field situations.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. You know, he has multiple sexual assault allegations against his name stemming back from high school and his time at Virginia.
Yeah, that's something that teams are obviously uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and he was pretty curt about it in talking about it in Indianapolis. And I don't know if kind of the way that he handled it with teams was if it was handled the same way, that might have just been a turnoff for some teams or all teams, because the talent level is proportionate with that of a player that would have been off the board by now.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing the Atlanta invest 2 first-round picks to get James Pierce.
Right. And they were tied to and were reported to be comfortable with some of the character stuff with both Walter Nolan and Mike Green. They obviously get the character guy in Jalen Walker first, and then go get the other character or the other kind of like same bucket as Walter Nolan of like, does he have the fire in his belly? How, what's his process like individually? So they were comfortable with a player that kind of had a question, but they went and got James Pierce, who I don't think, and based off of where I have him ranked versus Mike Green, it's a lesser player.
Yeah. Well, I sort of look at Donovan Izaraku as a player that I'm mildly surprised didn't go on night one, just because the length, the repertoire of pass rush moves. You have a team with this type of urgency to go get James Pierce. Izaraku felt like a fairly clean projection, and I think he'll go early on Friday night, but a faller that doesn't necessarily have any red flags that we're at least aware of.
Right. The only other player I had a first-round grade on, like a definitive first-round grade on, was Savon Revel. So the 3 guys that I had first-round grades that did not go in the first round was Will Johnson, Mike Green, and Savon Revel. And Revel, another guy that has a medical flag, so there's an understanding reason why he doesn't go. But kind of other names that I had graded in the late 1, early 2 stratosphere, I'll just go by position to kind of spotlight some of these fallers, and it's a nice transition for us to kind of preview day 2 a little bit. I had Shadur Sanders, who I am super proud we're 17 minutes in, and we haven't just sat here and apparently did what ESPN did all night and just constantly just beat that storyline.
Isn't the explanation easy? He's got really modest physical tools, and he's certainly a very unique personality. Okay, like that's not always going to go.
Yeah, well, and it seemed like throughout their draft process, their tone certainly changed. If you go back to December and it was we're going to pick where we go, and
yeah.
I'm not going to let every team draft my son is effectively the tone of what Dion said. And, you got past the All-Star circuit, which he didn't partake in other than going in and doing some media stuff briefly at the Shrine. And then he goes to the Combine and the tone is very different. And he's wearing Giants cleats for workouts, and everybody passes. Right. So I don't think their process, I think it kind of became apparent to them like, hey, we don't hold the cards here. And I think the league kind of resoundingly gave their opinion of the skill set of the player, who's not as toolsy as either Cameron Ward or Jackson Dart. I think has a potential to be a quality starter in the NFL, but the tools are limited. And then when you don't help yourself with how you handle kind of the messaging of like, we're going to choose where we go. And the league's like, well, no, you're not. Yeah. Like, we're the ones that put the names on the cards, right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit happy for the NFL that they didn't just fall in line and was willing to be honest about the evaluation and the overall package and say, you know what? Don't think so.
So Shadur Sanders, Luther Burden, who had a late 1, early 2 on, Mike Green, Donovan Izaraku, Nick Scorton as edge rushers, Carson Schwessinger at linebacker, Will Johnson, Savon Revel, Trey Amos, Darian Porter. So there's a nice little honey hole of corners here where I think that probably got bogged down by the best ones available, have some medical flags, and got pushed down the board a little bit. And then I have 2 safeties with late 1, early 2s in Nicky Manwari and Xavier Watts. So if you're a team that's picking early, that for me, the secondary is where I think there's some good value that's going to be available early. But the question, again, goes back to not to do segment 3 before we do segment 3. What does the scarcity in the trenches do for some of those teams that need it?
Yeah. I think a corner run's coming. I think a corner run is coming with Revel, Johnson at some point, Parrish, Azarie Thomas.
Yep.
There's Darian Porter.
Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah, the corners are coming here on day 2. So maybe that pushes some of those defensive linemen down. We'll see. We'll talk about what's going to happen on day 2 here on the other side of it. Please be sure to stick with us. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. They've got Major League Baseball. They've got NFL draft props. So many things that you can check out over at FanDuel. So don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
So when our completion of last night and did my Kenneth Grant show, I did do a day 2 mock. Set the stage on some. You want to get into some player. You want to know where players went. You want to. The first 5 scheduled in the queue is Cleveland, Houston via the trade back, Tennessee, Cleveland, Las Vegas Raiders.
All right, who's your first 5 picks?
Will Johnson, 33 to the Browns.
All right.
It's too good to pass up, right? The premier position. You got Greg Newsome on a
5th-year option. Emerson fell off, yeah.
Yeah. TJ Sanders to the Texans.
Boy, they need D-tackle.
It'd be a fun fit.
It fits. I mean, it's a redundant skill set based on what they have, but I think that's what they like.
Yeah. Luther Burden to Tennessee.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really nice pick. You want to get some rhythm going. You want some yak ability. That's a good one. I like that.
Cover your ears, but I do have Ariante Ursery going to the Browns at 36.
I don't care about that. That's perfect. Go ahead and put him as your left tackle. We'll see what happens.
And then the Las Vegas Raiders end the slide. Shedeur Sanders at 37.
Watch him just pick Will Howard. I love what you did for the Bills. I would sign up for. Is it Nick Scorton and Jamari Caldwell?
The Buffalo Bills on my day 2 mock over the 33rd team got Nick Scorton at 56 and Jamari Caldwell at 62.
Yeah, I'd love that. Boy, that talk about checking boxes. That would make me real happy. Savianaya for the Dolphins. I haven't seen it, but is that what we're doing?
They got Savianaya at 48, and then
question this.
Dolphins fans were mad, but I gave him Jordan Phillips to another defensive tackle at 98.
Oh man, yeah, we're not hoping that happens at all.
Meat and potatoes class.
Maybe like 3 of my favorite prospects in the draft.
I had a hard time with the corner, right? Because I had at corner. You talked about the run. Well, if Will Johnson goes. Trey Amos, I have going 43 to San Francisco.
Nice.
Which I like that fit for them with moving on from Javarius Ward with Ward wanting a new opportunity elsewhere. I had the Cardinals getting Benjamin Morrison at 47. So could I have drafted Darian Porter or Jacob Parrish to Miami at 48? Yeah. But I don't know, like the Dolphins get up on the podium last night and they're talking about this is a pick that helps them reset the tonality of the team.
Oh, Savianaya. Let's keep it going. Let's don't. I didn't mean that.
Right. But even you look at Nick Westbrook-Akine at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right. You think about what they brought in with KJ Britt at linebacker. You can kind of look at James Daniels at offensive guard. Oh, there's most of their free agents that are meaningful free agents that you expect are going to play. There's an added focus on some physicality because let's be honest, this was a finesse football team last year, and they have the stigma of we have all the speed, but when it's time to line up and go mano a mano, like they don't have it. And some of the theme of that. So to hear Mike McDaniel talk about Kenneth Grant and why they love it so much is the tonality of the team. I'm sitting here looking at Jonas Savinaya is on the board at 48 and you have a needed guard. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put that pick in. And then we'll figure out corner somehow, some way elsewhere.
This is me declining my invitation to Locked On Dolphins to talk about Kenneth Grant and Jonas Savinaya.
Other quarterbacks? You want to hear other quarterbacks?
Yeah, that was my next question. Where are these guys going?
Tyler Shough to the Saints at 40 after.
So that's QB4. Shough. Okay. To the Saints.
To the Saints at 40.
Okay.
I had heard they like Dart, and then Shough was the other name for them.
Okay.
Milroe to Pittsburgh at 83.
Great. I think that's a wonderful spot. I think that works out well for Jalen. I'm sure he'd love to have gone higher. but I think that's a great landing spot for him.
And that's it.
So Will Howard, Kyle McCord.
Will Howard, Kyle McCord did not make it.
Quinn Ewers?
Shut up. But here's the thing that I had a hard time with for Milroe. If Shedeur goes to the Raiders and then, Shough goes 40 to New Orleans, are the Jets going to take 42 and spend it on a quarterback? Are the Rams, after trading back from 46, going to take Jalen Milroe as their quarterback with their first pick in the class? And the answer to those questions for me was no. So then it's like, at that point, where does he go?
I don't think the Jets have that type of urgency right now at quarterback, and I don't think they should.
They shouldn't. Yeah.
They should not have that.
I had them getting Elijah Arroyo at tight end and go with Membu.
Chill out with all these good picks. We got the Patriots getting. Are they going to get Jaden Higgins and just really?
They got Jaden Higgins at 38.
Oh, Lord God, that's a lot of good players going to the AFC East.
But this drives home the exact point that we were talking about coming into this draft. Where's the sweet spot in this draft?
Right here.
Look at the names that went after pick 25.
Yeah.
You got Josh Simmons went. You had Malachi Starks went to Baltimore. And then you're getting into the early second round, and it's like, man, I love what the Jets got at 42. Man, I love what the Dolphins got at 48. Man, I love the Browns getting Will Johnson at 33. You get into the Bills picks, and you're like, man, I love the edge rusher, heavy-handed edge rusher that they get in the fit for Buffalo at 56. I had Alfred Collins went 55 to the Chargers.
Boy, what a dream that is.
Right. And it's just like,
wow.
Since Cincinnati gets Tate Rowledge at 49.
Yeah.
I had Izaraku going 54 to the Packers.
These are, man, and you start to think about the combinations. Golden and Izaraku, Hampton and Alfred Collins for the Chargers. It's like, yep, I see it. I see how this is really going to take these teams to the next level potentially.
It just really drives home like the depth on day 2 of this year's class is where, if you can find the picks, like, and the Raiders, I mean, at 68, they ended up getting Jacob Parrish.
Boy, and could you, like, that to me is such a better outcome of, you imagine picking at 6 Jahdae Barron, which is something that was rumored to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you rather have Genty and then go get Parrish in round 2, where, I mean, I love Barron, but I love Parrish as well. And Parrish has got better size than Barron. He's got 2 inches more on the arm length. He's got a little bit more mass, and he's more proven on the outside. So yeah, Parrish at 68 potentially, and he could very easily go in the 40s. It sounds like the league's higher on him than what the consensus rankings were. That for whatever reason he's sitting at 105 in all these mock drafts. He's available in the simulator. He's going.
But like Jack Betch to Houston at 58.
Now they traded out, right? So that'd be their top pick. Is that their first pick?
No, their first pick's 34. That was I had it being TJ Sanders.
Oh, so you get a D-line and an O-line help, or a receiver help there.
Yeah. And
Betch kind of works for them. I like that.
But and the point being, yeah, they could come off in different order, but the robustness of the names that's available means you're going to be picking in the mid-50s, and you're going to be like, this guy should have gone 15 picks ago.
What team does Travion Henderson play for in your mock draft?
Travion Henderson.
Let's just be Denver. Go to Denver, right?
No, Chicago at 39.
Okay, so they get that makes sense.
Colson Loveland, Travion Henderson, and then I have them picking Mike Green at 41.
I don't want to hear a word. I don't hear a word about what Caleb Williams has around him if this is what happens. Not a word. Not a word.
A lot of good football players left, man.
Any specialists on day 2 and kickers and punters? No.
Come
on, man. What happened there? Do you want to sneak any of them in?
Trying to think of who I had the hard time with.
I'm sure you didn't have hard. It's more. I'm sure you had players spilling into day 3 that you were probably excited about. Where'd Torrey Horton go? Did he go for you? This is one of my new favorite players.
Horton did not go.
There he is. 109 to the Bills.
So wide receivers, it was Burden, 35, Higgins, 38, Jalen Knoll to the Broncos at 51, Jack Betch to the Texans at 58, Ayo Manor to the Lions at 60, Kyle Williams to the Jets. So the The Jets go Membu, Elijah Arroyo, Kyle Williams with their first 3. Ty Felton to the Cowboys. Trey Harris to the Cardinals. Jalen Royals to the Seahawks. Savion Williams at 100 to the 49ers. Those wide receivers on the day 2 mock.
This is a good crop of day 2 options. We didn't get quite the volume of first-round receivers we got last year, but I think there's some nice role-specific players that teams can round out their receiver cores with this, on day 2 here. Excited to see how they all fall.
For sure. Anything else?
Just remember, folks, we've only done 32 of 250 something picks. So
57.
250. We're not going to try to do the percentage of math here, but a very small percentage of this draft has been done. So
I could do this math. There's 225 picks left.
Yeah.
What
percentage of the draft is available? That was the math. They're getting crazy now.
a little less than 1/7. How's that?
Yeah,
Actually, it might be. Don't think about 32 comp picks. So is it technically 1/8? It's 1/8 that the draft is done, which would make it like 12.5%.
I wonder when we have these moments, just the people are just yelling,
screaming at us. I'm going to do it. 32 divided by 257 is 12.45%. I said 12.5. And draft dudes do math. We're going to do the Costanza and end on a high note. We're out of here. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, Locked On NFL Scouting. Hope you guys enjoyed this recap night 1, preview night 2. Kind of a look at some day 2 mock simulation situations, who fell, the trends from the first round. A lot of great stuff. We're going to have you covered. Joe and I tonight are going to be our teams each have multiple picks, so we're going to be dialed in on some team-specific stuff. You want to do something to recap round 2 or day 2?
Perhaps.
Just have to hit subscribe, come back and find out. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, we're out here. Talk to y'all again soon.